welcome to Sister Denise, and I would like to extend a very warm welcome to each and every one of you. What I especially love about Denise is her deep authenticity, clear mind, and a very powerful intellect with which she translates very deep spiritual truths into everyday living. Warm welcome, Denise. It's over to you now, but I'm sitting here.
Well, thank you so much, Madhvi, and thank you for your very kind words. It is truly a very special day, and of course, I think the majority of people on the program today would be women, so happy Women's Day. And to all the brothers who are with us, happy Women's Day for you also. And it is a very pertinent topic, finding your rightful place in the balance of power. And at the moment, we are in a very conflicted world. It has been nearly 70 years since there has been war in Europe, but now we have war in Europe. And we have war in individual homes in many cases. We have a lot of other parts of the world where war is raging, but it's not coming up on the media, so people don't think about it. But actually, there's a great deal of war happening in many parts of the world. And all of that is because the people who are the thought leaders think that there's no need for balance of power. And I think this is really one of the key reasons why we have war in the Ukraine at the moment. And I've been watching the news like everybody else, and also looking at some of the analyses going on, which explain what really made this flare up. And it is very much to do with the idea that instead of a balance of power, one side should be dominant, and then there will be peace, but it doesn't work out. In the same way, in individual homes, one of you was asking, how does this apply to the home? Well, it applies totally, because the prevailing social attitudes that are spread through the world in pretty much all the cultures, religions, nations, they all think that one side should be more powerful and the other side should be less powerful, and then we will have peace. And they have the idea that if there is a balance of power, then we won't have peace, because there's always a possibility that one side would dominate or attempt to dominate. But if there's a clear dominance of one side, then we will have peace. But that is faulty logic. You know, if you look at the principles of spirituality and you see the description of a soul is neither male nor female. And a soul has the same number of births in a female body as it does in a male body. So deep down, we have to understand that we are neither, and we are also both and. That's an interesting balance of power. The symbol of the world of perfection, the world of heaven, which is a place of peace and prosperity to civilization. And the symbol of that is Vishnu, where the two arms of man and the two arms of woman are in perfect balance. so that you can only really have a world that works, whether it's at the level of an individual or a family or a city or a corporation or anything, up to the entire world. It's only going to work well if we're in balance. And our topic today is restoring the balance of power. And so we need to look at how you find your place in the balance of power such that you do arrive at restoring the balance of power. So generally speaking, in the world that we live in, regardless of where in the world, it's a global situation, that it is a patriarchal world, and there is a bias against women and children and animals and plants and even the elements of matter. And the dominant force is the male human. And when you are thinking that being the dominant force means that you can do whatever you like, then you forget about some very, very important natural laws, spiritual laws. And these laws are that there can only really be happiness in this world at any level, at the microcosmic or the macrocosmic level. There can only be peace, happiness, prosperity when there is balance. And so International Women's Day doesn't mean that women seek to become dominant. That is not the solution. But it's really an interesting input on the side of women, saying that we have to be in a position such that there is balance. And the current way that the world is configured is a little bit similar to the problem in Europe at the moment politically around this war of Ukraine. Ukraine lies in between United States and Russia, NATO and Russia, and the eastern half of Ukraine tends to be more Russian-oriented, and the western half tends to be more Western-oriented. And the idea initially was to have Ukraine in a neutral position, so that there could be a space between the two big powers in this world, where there would be this feeling of we're comfortable to be in balance with each other. But as soon as the one side started to say, no, we need to be there in this area, then the other felt threatened. And if anybody feels threatened, then there's no balance. And when somebody is threatened, then they react. And you have this in many family homes. One of the things that happened with COVID and the rules and regulations connected with it is that people became homebound. And so the men and women were sitting there with each other inside the house, and it became a huge increase of domestic violence, because unless there is balance between the husband and wife in a family, then you have a conflict situation. And as long as somebody is going out to work, someone else is going out somewhere else, and you don't meet, then there isn't conflict. But the important thing is to find balance. And another image that I would like to bring into the mix is the image of justice. Because when we have a conflict situation, always the question of justice comes into it. And they say, if you have justice on your side, then your side of the war is right, and the other side are the bad guys and they're wrong. And the image for justice is always a woman, and what she's holding in her hand are the scales of justice, which means that you can have a world where there is justice when everything is in balance. And as soon as things go out of balance, then they go out of justice and they come into conflict. They come into situations where one is abusing the other and the other is reacting, and you get an escalation which arrives in very destructive circumstances. And this is where we are at the moment. And so it's a critical time for everyone. I think also it's true to say that a lot of people are internally conflicted. Do you know who you are? And if you ask yourself that question and go into deep silence, mostly you don't. Even if you say, oh yes, I know that I'm a soul, that still doesn't tell you who you are, because what is inside that soul? What is your reality of your identity? And I think everyone is pretty much internally out of balance. And this is also because of gender consciousness. You will say, I am a man, therefore, therefore, therefore. I am a woman, therefore, therefore, therefore. And what that means to me is that this bias, gender bias, leads to faulty logic about how you think through your situation. And so it's a deep subject. And finding your place in the balance of power means that you have to really understand yourself, and you have to understand your role. And I think you also have to understand your purpose. And there's a difference between your role and your purpose. So meditation is essential for this, because meditation means you sit down and you think deeply about what is necessary to think about, what is important to think about. So you're not just sitting in silence when you're meditating, you're in deep thought to try to understand what's real, what's important, what's going on, and why you are internally conflicted. So a lot of it has to do with the internalization of what most people call conventional wisdom. And it's a bit of a misnomer, because conventional wisdom is not particularly wise, because it's based on gender bias. It's based on racism. It's based on ageism. It's based on materialism. And so in itself, it is out of balance. And so if you try to find balance through conventional wisdom, you will not. So what is the lodestone that enables us to arrive at real wisdom, which is not conventional wisdom? I also use this term conventional morality, which is a bit similar to conventional wisdom, and it's also based on gender bias, racism, different kinds of prejudices, religious, national, color, education, social position. All of these variations tip the balance in favor of one set of people against another set of people, and the result is a conflicted world internally, in the family, in the community, in the country, and internationally. And it's really very urgent for us to restore the balance. And I think women have a very important role to play in this, because there are many things that women do which keep them in a place of disempowerment. And this is because of the conditioning and the way the society that surrounds you reflects you back to yourself, and the fact that you have swallowed that mirror image, hook, line, and sinker, and you might occasionally say no to it, but you need a lot more than just to be against it, because it doesn't work. Confrontation is not the solution to imbalance. Maybe cogitation is better than confrontation. And the first thing I think one has to do is to find one's own balance. And the key piece of information that we learn from Raj Yoga, which is a study and a meditation practice, but you cannot really meditate if you are not very clear about the implications of the study. Human life is all about relationship. And the first thing is the relationship between yourself and your body. And if you think, well, I am my body, then you have, you don't really have a relationship, because a relationship is between two things. And if you don't think of yourself as two, then there's no relationship. And you come as someone who doesn't have a relationship with the self, and you interact with others in the world. So you can't have a relationship with them that is balanced, because you don't have one with yourself. And so the first relationship is myself and my body. And so what is that relationship? You know, it's an important relationship. Some people, when they think about spirituality, or they hear about it, or they learn about it in an imbalanced way. And they say, well, the soul is important and the body is not important. And therefore, they create an imbalance in their relationship with themselves to start with. And that would not lead to success. I think there's a deep connection between success and balance. And again, the symbol of success is the symbol from India, the symbol of Vishnu, where the masculine and the feminine are in balance. And there are other areas of balance that are also included in this symbol. And it is a symbol that refers to oneself, because it is a symbol of purity in the mind, of the words, detachment in action, and the power to stand up for yourself. And these are the four symbols of Vishnu. And in most places which are studying about Vishnu, they never really talk about this power to stand up for yourself, and which is the mace in the hand of Vishnu, The pure mind is symbolized by the swastika spinning. And the swastika means you know who you are. And you understand the totality of yourself, not just a part of yourself. So you understand that your body could be either male or female, but yourself is not male or female. And so that's an interesting thing to be very clear about, because there are so many messages from the outside which reflect you back to yourself, saying you are your body, therefore, 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 therefore. And you have to be able to use the mace and stand up for yourself and say, I occupy a female body, but I am a genderless, colorless, classless, religionless being of light. And this is the balance, what you are and the instrument through which you perform, which is a set of circumstances. And the very interesting thing that is told to us is you are an actor and you are not your role. And yet people identify with their body, they identify with their role. And this identification of the self with the body and the role is the key issue. And one has been conditioned to that throughout life. You know, as soon as a baby is born, and even before that, now we have sonography, they say, what is it? Is it a boy or a girl? Well, first of all, it's not an it, you see. The body is definitely an it. Could be male, could be female, but I am not an it. I am a someone, not a something. So we have to make a distinction between being a someone who is functioning through a something, which is a body, through a role, which is also a something, in some circumstances, which is a somewhere, and there are situations. And our function is to deal with circumstances that are out of balance and bring them into balance. This is really, I think, a very important role within our role. You know, the real purpose of an individual is to bring balance into a circumstance which is seriously out of balance. And one thing people are afraid of is that the imbalance has gone too far and there's really nothing they can do. If we look at the conflict in the Ukraine, it's not really about Ukraine. It's about something much, much bigger, which is the conflict in the world between different large, powerful communities, and each one of them wants to be the dominant power. And that means it will lead to destruction because you cannot reach that. The thing you have to do is to work it out with each other so that you can be in a balance of power. If you think about just electricity, which is a very key thing in our lives, if you have an electric wire with two wires and one of them is positive current and one of them is a negative current, and then you have everything working properly. If you think about any given day, you know, some of it is night and some of it is day, you have a balance, and then you feel comfortable. You want to be awake for some of the time, asleep for some of the time. Then you have balance. You want to be working. You want to have your leisure time, your home time, your out time. If you don't have all of these variations in your life in balance, then you get sick. Mentally sick, physically sick, socially sick. And so we are in a world where everything is out of balance. So the woman, what must you do to bring yourself into balance? One very interesting thing about a woman's biology is it's very connected with the moon. And the moon is a very interesting symbol of balance. In Japanese flower arranging, they say you have to arrange the flowers so that you have a balance between the sun, the moon, and the earth. So you have something that is very tall, something that is the ground, and something in between, which is shifting. And this is also another symbol of balance, which results in beauty and harmony. And so I think the woman is also, in terms of art, the female form is a symbol of beauty. And you see that people want to draw or make statues of the female form because it's completely harmonious. And yet, that which is so harmonious is put in second place when we are in a world where one gender seeks to dominate over the other gender, because then they think that everything will be fine if you do it like that. And it didn't work out. So we are at a crisis time. And crisis time is really great because you find that ultimately there's absolutely nothing you can do, and you just have to throw up your hands and give up because it's totally gone too far. And that's in a way very good, because as long as you're trying to force things to be the right way according to your idea of what's right and wrong, it just gets more and more out of balance. Along with the moon, we also have nature. And nature is well balanced. People talk about the human factor as the cause of climate change, and it has definitely had a huge impact. And the quantity of humans in relationship with the quantity of the other creatures has become too much, and this has created an imbalance, which has meant that the balance of nature has been compromised, and human activity has clearly created a lot of damage. But there are other things that are not clearly the result of human behavior. It's that the world, the whole of the natural world, has reached a point where it needs to reset itself. The human society has also reached a point where it needs to reset itself. And so here we are in the face of a very big crisis, an existential crisis, crisis of habitat, crisis of meaning, and it is soaked in the blood of innocent people in the crossfire. And really, nobody knows what to do. So what happens in war? What happens in war is mostly all the men get killed. Not all the men, but a very, very large amount. And in Ukraine, what has happened is refugees are mostly women and children, and all of the Ukrainian men between the ages of, I think, about 16 and 60 are held back to take up arms. And of course, there will be a lot of casualties. This type of bloodletting takes place every so often in human history. And by the time the crisis of war is finished and there is destruction all around, who is left is women. And what do the women do? They pick up the pieces and they begin to find that they can do those activities that were told to them that they couldn't do. Essentially what's defined as men's work. And I think the woman is a survivor. The woman is the one who is able to handle incredible pain and still manage. It doesn't mean that she likes this, but she can do it. And there was something in the spiritual teachings that we had in our classes this morning, which was saying that at the time of this extreme imbalance, this extremely critical times, women have to endure unimaginable pain and distress and difficulty. And so this shows you that the woman is really powerful. And in India, there are the symbols of the goddesses, really powerful. In Catholicism, the Virgin Mary is given preeminent position as the powerful woman. In Protestantism, not. It's totally a masculine dominant approach to religion. And with the assumption that God is some kind of a man who made man in his own image, and woman, I don't know what. They haven't figured out a solution for that. But this is, again, I think, faulty logic based on the idea that I am my body. And what is God? Who is God? Where is God? This is a great mystery that people have been trying to figure out, and they have come to various conclusions which never really managed to get everyone on board, because there are so many different ideas about this. But it is said that that God is light, spirit, intelligence. And again, it takes us away from the physical and towards the spiritual in order to find clarity, in order to find meaning. And so I think that this is really what's happening now. And one very interesting thing that I would like to bring into the equation here is a law of spirituality that is really quite mysterious. And the law is that you can only really have contact with the divine when circumstances are stressful and distressing to the maximum extent. So I think that while we are in a very critical and difficult situation in the home, within the individual and globally, we're also at a time when this law is getting activated. And I think the role of women in this is especially important because it is seen to be the case that women are more oriented towards inner work, meditative practices, just sitting quiet and watching the fire on which they cook the food to sustain the family. But the woman does secret inner work, as the Aboriginals of Australia speak of secret women's business, to bring the world back into balance. So let us just pause for a moment and sit for a moment of meditation to just feel the spirit within, which is neither male nor female, just pure light. You are not the body. You are not the role. Something else, something deeper, something intangible, but yet very real. The energy of the pure soul. Connected to the source, through which the force of light, a stream of love, courses through you and spreads through the world. You don't have to do anything. Just be the light. Be with the light. Radiate your power. Radiate the fragrance of your being. And the world gently finds balance once again. Thank you. Om Shanti. Let us focus our minds on the land of Ukraine, one of the biggest countries in this area, and how much fire, how much bombs, how much cold, how much fear, how much sadness is in the atmosphere. And let us turn within and connect with the Supreme. Open up a big channel and invoke that light, that peace, that spiritual energy, and let it fill the atmosphere of the land of Ukraine. Fill the hearts of those who are fighting, those who are taking care, those who are resisting, those who feel abandoned by God, but let them know that He is right there in this hour of trial and tribulation, this time of wholesale death. The peace of God is there. The power of God is there to enable each one to pass through these dark hours and reach a beautiful dawn, peace and harmony for everyone. Om Shanti.